Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another Zoom edition of ATI. Dan with Brian and Matt. Matt's eating his spaghetti and meatballs as we get going here. For those who are watching on Pegasus, how is it, Matty?
Definitely got to work on my meatball cooking. Not truly Italian, so I blame that. That's what I'm going with.
Well, it's definitely making me hungry. I got to figure out what I'm going to do for dinner. A lot to get to. We were talking a little bit before the show. We got some football to talk about, of course. Basketball starting up again in a couple of weeks. Some free agency talk. Even some college sports to get to. But let's start with the Patriots, who have really kind of put us on a roller coaster. Not just the last few weeks, but I would say this entire season.
All right.
A nice win last week over the Cardinals, 20-17, to keep hopes alive, the slim hopes alive, for the postseason. Is there what do we think the percentage is that they can actually get to the playoffs? And that win last week was that ugly, because the offense did not look good, but somehow they pulled it out.
I mean, that's kind of been the way the whole year's gone, right? You look at it, this team is outside of the San Francisco game. They've been in every game, which is really mind-blowing when you think of how bad the season is. Cam is a good quarterback. He hasn't made any plays with his arm yet, except for that Seattle game, and yet it still came down to his legs. I thought defensively they shut down Kyler really well to hold him under 200 yards passing and under, I think he only had like 20 yards rushing. Right. And he's the leading rushing quarterback in football this year. I thought they did really well. They've played really well. They're a couple plays away from being like 7-4, 8-3 right now. And I know that sounds big, but like the fumble against Buffalo, the play against Seattle, just looking here, the Texans, that shouldn't have been. The Texans aren't that good, and then even the Broncos game, right? So you look at the teams, they have the ability. Bill's keeping him in these games. He just, if he has Andy Dalton instead of Cam Newton, maybe they win these games.
Oh, my God. Remember who was saying that they should bring in Andy Dalton? I'm so glad you said that. I was the only one on this show who said, bring the Red Rocket to Foxborough.
And you know what? Now he's having to carry Dallas to possibly division title, which I don't want to get into, but.
At least we can get to that eventually.
They must have the smallest margin of error. I'm phrasing it wrong, but basically when they lose, the games are probably the closest of any other teams. Like, I mean, I watched the Raiders game. They get destroyed 43 to whatever the hell it was. I mean, when they lose big. But the Patriots, the games they're losing, they're in it. I think that's the frustrating thing. Yeah. And we get back to how many starters, sat out this year. The stuff going on at quarterback. Edelman has missed I don't know how many games now. That's huge. And part of me is like, okay, they got to run the table to make the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, then do you bring Cam back? Probably not. But maybe you do, because then he did. And do we really want to go through this again next year? And if we get somebody else who has a better arm, when it's 3-1, 3rd-1, are they going to be able to run for a first down, or are they going to fall down? And then we're not going to be in these close games anyway. And I don't know. I mean, there's so many things thinking about. There's so many feelings, I think, as a Patriots fan this year that people have never had to deal with for at least a generation.
Yeah.
And I mean, not even when Bledsoe was quarterback, but I mean, Brady changed a lot as a quarterback from when he first came in the league to when he was they called him like a system quarterback, where he was, completing balls, and it was a defense that carried a lot of the teams, early years. And then Brady kind of became a household name and got his rings, and then really put the team on his back. But every week it's what's going to happen with the Patriots, or, oh, did you watch them? And, when they came back and beat the Jets, I'm like, did they come back and beat the Jets, or did the Jets just beat the Jets?
Jet that game.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So, but, I hear some of these Buffalo Bills fans talk about, well, when we win the division this year, and I'm just you want to puke in your mouth, because Buffalo is just a god-awful, I don't know. But I don't know. I mean, it'd be a nice story, but at the same time, if they actually do run the table and make it, is that more impressive than what happened with when they didn't make the playoffs, when they had, what was it, the 10-6?
No, the Matt Castle year, 11-5.
Yeah. Is Matt Castle, is that more impressive what they did that? Because that year, I mean, they were throwing to Randy Moss. They were throwing to Wes Welker. They didn't have Brady, but they had some pretty good weapons. This year, you really don't have much.
That's interesting that you said it, because I would say if Bill somehow gets into the playoffs this year, that would be more impressive than what he did with that Matt Castle season. That's interesting.
And I'm thinking too, because the wild cards and there's nobody in these stadiums. A wild card team could probably go a lot deeper, almost similar to what we saw in the NBA bubble, because there isn't any fans. Where going into the season, it's like, well, the Patriots are going to be good, but you got the Chiefs and the Ravens and home field, and if we don't have home field, then I don't know if that matters anymore. I mean, I think it's going to be a factor, but not like it was in the past.
Especially because you already went into Kansas City with I don't even have words to describe your quarterback playing that game, and you still had a chance outside of really 3 stupid plays that if you have any other quarterback in the NFL, they make the right decision. So like, honestly, the only team that scares me is the Titans, because I don't know if you have the bodies to handle Derrick Henry in the running game. That's the only team that really scares me, because obviously Kansas City, I think, is the best team in the AFC, and we can probably talk about that, but like Pittsburgh,
they get the best offense, that's for sure.
Yeah, so like they can put up points, and I don't know if you can keep up with them, but you've already proved that defensively you have a little game plan. You're, I think, against Mahomes, you're 3-2, 3-1, something like that, and you've beaten them in Arrowhead. So anything's possible if you can get there. But it's right now it's Chargers, Rams, Dolphins, Bills, Jets. They're all teams that you should be able to beat, or at least be in the game and have a chance come the final 5 minutes. So while I don't think they will run the table, because we've seen the way this team goes, it's if they do go 5-0, can we really sit here and be like, oh, well, I can't believe they beat the Rams or the Chart? Come on.
Like, yeah, when you look at the schedule, you just said it out loud, Matt. Chargers, Rams, Dolphins, Bills, Jets. Bills game's going to be in Foxborough, but not that, like Brian said, home field is not that important this year, but you'd rather it be in Foxborough than Buffalo. There's a chance.
No, but the Bills is the tough game, right? You see, what else do, Matt? You're looking at the schedule now, Dan, you are as well. The Dolphins always do random stupid shit against the Patriots, and it works. I mean, whether it's dildos on the field or what's going on.
And that's going to end in Miami, which always is usually a house of horrors for the Pats.
How many dildos do you think we'll see on the field, Dan? What do you think? Over under?
Well, there's no fans in Buffalo, so
there might be the dildos of the coaches themselves. Who knows? But that's what Miami's just a weird place. They've established that. But the Bills game is the tough game. It's a good going into that game. If they haven't lost so far, that's huge.
And that's a Monday night game, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and also the Patriots, because they have the Chargers and they have 2 LA teams, so they're going to be in California for almost a week.
Yeah, because they're playing. And the Rams game is the Thursday night.
Yeah, they're at UCLA, I heard.
Yeah, so they've already been there the past couple days. Yeah, leading into that. So.
Yeah, and they might hire a scout for the defensive team. I heard Patricia's available now. Matt Custodio's doppelganger.
That's right.
I'm pretty sure I can go bed.
Where's your pencil? But were you guys surprised that he got canned? I mean, with how awful he was playing, were you surprised he didn't get fired sooner?
I was gonna say, the surprise is he didn't get fired sooner, right? I mean, his record was pretty bad. This was his 3rd season in his record?
I heard that a couple guys on the radio. He got his fat contract. Now he's basically set for life, and now he can go do what he wants to do. Like as an assistant, you probably make under $1 million. I'm gonna say, but as a head coach, he was probably making maybe close to 5 or 10 or God knows how much, over a 3-year deal. So he's basically set for life now. So he's financially stable. He can go become an assistant with anybody else and be out of the spotlight if he wants. And defensively, I think he knows the shit too. So I don't know. Does he come back? Who knows?
And I think the big, like we were talking here, it's on Thursday as they were getting blown out by Houston. It was like he's done. And obviously, like Jim Caldwell was never successful, but he was a 500 coach, and compared to Matt Patricia, he looks pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean mentally, not physically.
What?
I mean, he looks like you, so I mean, I think he's a good-looking guy.
But like I just never understood when a coach goes in and you want to completely tear down and bring in all your guys. Like, I get it. You want the team to be yours, and Adam Gase is this whole other issue over there in New York. But like in Detroit, you had Matt Stafford. You still had Calvin Johnson when he came in before Calvin. No, actually, Patricia did. So you had to find some new weapons there. But defensively, you're this guru. They never succeeded. You just brought in a bunch of expatriates. He tried to start something Patriot-esque instead of taking Detroit and being who Detroit is, which is blue collar, get to work. We're going to do what we're supposed to, and we just have to deal with the Packers.
Right.
Because when he went there, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but it wasn't like a total rebuild.
Jim Caldwell went 9-7 the year he got fired.
It was more like, we're bringing in this guy. He's got a defensive background. He's coming from the Patriots. We don't need to totally blow it up. We just need him to stabilize it and get us over the top. And he kind of had the opposite approach.
It's not something like the NBA they would do, is where the guy would win Coach of the Year and then they would fire him and bring in somebody else.
That's just Toronto.
Nothing is that stupid. Where a guy would go to like the Eastern Conference Finals and be like, "We're going to change things up a little different this year."
That worked. That worked in Toronto.
But like, can you imagine the NFL, like if I don't know, let's say the Bills went to, like, the AFC Championship game, and then they lost in the Super Bowl, and then they fired the coach in the Super Bowl. Like, well, they didn't win the Super Bowl, so we didn't reach our goals this year. Only in the NBA would do something stupid like that. But I think getting back to what Matt was saying about how Matt Patricia is a defensive guru, and then goes there and things don't quite work out. How often do we hear about Bill Belichick, where he's a coaching guru, but he's the GM? Bill is not that great. Everybody talks about that. I hear that over and over and over again. And I think that he's made some decent moves, maybe bringing some guys in veterans-wise who have a little more left, and when they leave, we realize they're really dog shit and have nothing left. But as far as drafting, that's hard. But drafting in general is very, very difficult. There's a lot of guys who don't look good in college, we don't know the backstory. We don't know if guys are hurt or not. We don't know, guys have, there's a lot of stuff that we don't know. And then they get to the pros and you're like, wow, this guy was a really great surprise, or, oh, wow, this guy's a great quarterback. A lot of it, as you guys know, and work in your professional lives, a lot of it is the situation you're in, the people around you, and the opportunities that you're given. And especially in professional sports with the money involved, there's so many factors to make a good athlete. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But some of these guys that Bill has taken, for whatever reason, it just doesn't work out. But the guys he brings in off the scrap heap for $500,000, he can make them look like the best thing in the world until they go to a Miami or somewhere else, where then they're awful again.
And you look this year, he didn't know how many guys he was going to have sitting out. Maybe he did. Obviously, that's the cat versus egg thing, or chicken versus egg thing, right? But Kyle Duggar, second-round pick out of no-name Division II school, turned into quite a decent player, starting a lot of games, playing some tough matchups. Chase Winovich last year, he comes in, he's probably our best defensive lineman right now, which Patriot defensive linemen are never really that great, but he's doing really well. And it's guys like that radio and media rips apart, but then, like, if you don't have them, this season's probably even worse than it already is.
I look at guys like Brady, and then a guy like not Walker, who's hurt right now. His doppelganger. Who's the guy that's hurt now? Edelman. What rounds were they picked in?
5 and 6 and 7.
So it's like, okay, and then it's pretty safe to say at one point in time those two were probably the best at their job in the NFL. That's a pretty good evaluation of talent. Now, did Bill have the foresight, or did those guys just work their balls off to get to that point? Who knows? I think it's a little bit of both. I think picking a sure thing is harder than it looks. Like, if a guy's a first-round talent, these guys, they're in a poor situation. They got bad people around them. All of a sudden, their 40 time goes to 4.6 when it used to be 4.3. That's hard, because you're like, well, the guy should be good. He was great at Ohio State. He was great at Michigan. He was great in Alabama. When you get these guys, these 6th and 5th round picks who are paying out, I think Bill doesn't get enough credit for that, because you hardly ever hear about that.
And I think just like the last part, I want to bring up about like the whole process of bringing people in. And you sit around all these quarterbacks and we give Bill all the crap in the world because he bailed on Stidham or Ryan Mallett, or pick your random quarterback, right? The comments that just came out this week, Tyreek Hill, when Patrick Mahomes came in, he thought he was trash. But you look at the situation, Patrick Mahomes, no-name 500 quarterback at Texas Tech, has a year behind Alex Smith, has Andy Reid, has guys like Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill to work with, and everything thrives.
Yep.
Whereas Sam Darnold comes in as boy wonder, comes into New York. He's going to be the savior of New York, and Adam Gase is his coach, and it just kills him because Adam Gase literally like sucks the life out of you to make sure he stays his weird eyes.
Well, why are people so baffled that talented or really talented quarterbacks who have the best offensive line in college football year after year get drafted by teams that suck with shitty coaches with no offensive line and all of a sudden can't handle it and don't look good? I mean, like it's like it's been going on since Jim Plunkett got drafted by the Patriots. You know, if by the time the ball's in your hands, you're already running 10 yards back because no one's protecting you. I can't imagine doing that every day in practice, let alone 16 times, during the season.
There's a reason Justin Herbert looks a lot better than Joe Burrow does. There's a reason.
Absolutely. And I'm wondering if you take some of those, shitty quarterbacks and you put them on a team that actually does have an offensive line, how much better they are. I don't think it's any secret that unless a miracle happens, Cam Newton doesn't come back, there's a lot of guys that are going to be available, a lot of guys who used to be the big thing. And those are the guys I think the Patriots are going to bring in the offseason and say, okay, you used to be the man. You put up 40 touchdowns in college. When you had protection, let's make it work and let's meet somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Before we shift gears to basketball, I just want to get your guys' thoughts on the Steelers. Do they have a chance to go undefeated? I'm looking at their schedule, 11-0 in their final 5 games. They're playing the Washington football team. Should be a win. At Buffalo, tough game. At Cincinnati, should be a win. Hosting the Colts, tough game. Colts are good. And then at Browns, tough game. That's a tough final 5 games.
So Washington Bengals, yes, that should be done and dusted. The Colts, I get confused about every week. Like Philip Rivers has them like about to win the AFC South, but then the next week they're getting blown out by Tennessee.
Got a good record.
Yeah, so that team just confuses me. Like number 1 defense and a decent offense, and then some weeks they just don't show up. Honestly, I want to see them go 15-0 into that Browns game. And Big Ben just lost his record as the winningest quarterback in Browns Stadium history to Baker this year. I want to see Baker go in there and just have him lose at home. His home away from home. That's where I want to see him lose it. Obviously, it really doesn't matter to me because I know Pittsburgh people are going to like harp on this, whether they go 15-1 or 16-0, whatever. Yep. But I want to see Big Ben go into his home away from home, Paul Brown Stadium, and lose. That's just going to make me happy.
Matt,
I don't think they're going to go. I think they'll lose a couple of those games.
Do they hang up a banner if they go 16-0 and then lose in the playoffs?
No, only we do that. It's only a we thing.
At least we made it all the way to the Super Bowl.
Because, I mean, like, this team is a lot like other teams that have gone like 14-2, 15-1 type thing. Their defense, yeah. Like, this team is really good defensively, and they have a veteran quarterback that's not going to make a mistake. They can't run the football, and they don't throw the football more than 5 yards down the field. Like, you look at that game Wednesday night. Wow, that was only yesterday. But you look at it.
They're like King Philip then?
Sure.
Well, they're a high school football team. I mean,
Oh, okay. I thought you
really good defense, and they don't throw the ball at all. And they're boring to watch, but they're going to beat the snot out of you 43-6, and your hands are freezing trying to wrap up the equipment.
Great Massachusetts high school football reference.
I'm sitting here thinking he's talking about like ancient history here. I'm like, what? What?
Well, that's the thing, Matt and Brian. It's like the Pittsburgh could end up going 16-0. They could end up going like 15-1, 14-2 with number 1 seed. But then I don't think a lot of people are even going to consider them the favorites to come out of the AFC, right? It's still going to be Kansas City.
Did you like yesterday's game? I get it. It was Wednesday. It was weird. Baltimore was missing how many starters? And they played my boy at quarterback at one point, and that was like – and Baltimore still could have won that game if RG3 wasn't the quarterback all game. Like, literally, give me anyone else. I'm not just talking McSorley at the end. Like, RG3 was not good. Like, he could not complete a pass. He had 2 good runs for, I think, 40 of his 50 yards. Like, and they still had a chance. It just –
Did the kicker from Vanderbilt really play quarterback for the Broncos in the same week? I mean, they needed somebody. Is that true? No?
She might have. She could.
Who ended up playing quarterback for the Broncos?
Everyone.
Well, but didn't they try and have a coach and they said you can't do that?
Yeah, their offensive quality control coach
Yeah.
was a UCF quarterback 4 years ago.
Don't they have that thing like the goalies in hockey where there's a guy in the stands who's on layaway?
Because the NFL is afraid that you're just going to take some bum and make him a coach, pay him like $5,000 a year,
Because they
but
don't
he's
have the
there
money.
just in case. Yeah,
They don't have the television revenue, unlike the NHL,
exactly. Yeah.
right?
Brian, I'm glad you mentioned the Vanderbilt kicker, the soccer player Sarah Fuller, who got to kick. It was obviously really exciting and historical. The fact that she literally all she was able to do is kick off to start the second half because Vanderbilt's offense is so pathetic.
Right.
I found that so hilarious. My brother's an alum of Vanderbilt, and I watched most of that game, and I was like, dude, this team they are just embarrassing. They couldn't move. They barely got the ball across the 50-yard line the whole game.
They should stop playing football in the SEC. It's an embarrassment.
Yeah,
Seriously.
all she was able to do was kick off once because they never even attempted a field goal, or obviously they didn't score a touchdown.
And
But
it's
in defense of women's sports, the United States girls soccer team is still better than men.
oh yeah.
I'm throwing that out there.
Talked about that last episode.
Yeah. No matter what, if people want to get into it, girls, it's all about the gold. The guys, it's all about. I don't know what that's about with them, but
Yeah, it's Missouri too. Like, come on, Missouri's not 41-0 good. Like that, they're not that good.
well,
Yeah.
the only example is I watched Atwood play for UMass,
He's
and I
doing
think
pretty well.
in the game that he played, they were getting destroyed too. But I got to see him play, which was cool.
Yeah,
I forgot about him.
he's doing really well. I think he's up to 6 or 7 tackles on the year, and he's
Really?
getting. It's the short end of the stick for UMass because they're not allowed to practice, but their 4 games they've played have all been against ranked opponents. It's like they're not like playing random schools like they normally do. You're playing top 25 programs in the country that are 8, 9, 10, and 0. Like, and you're just sitting here rolling out of bed, and you're like, oh, I guess I'm playing today.
That's right.
I give that whole team a lot of credit. I'm pretty sure Dan has more passing yards than their whole team combined.
Probably.
Wait, so Matt, give us a very quick rundown of like what is happening right now in college football because I really have no idea, and I don't think Brian has any idea either.
I know Notre Dame was doing pretty well at one point.
Yeah.
So right now, Notre Dame probably the favorite in the clubhouse, national championship wise. It's them and Alabama, the only undefeated teams really left. There's a couple others: Cincinnati, BYU, Coastal Carolina, but those teams aren't going to cause any issues. It really comes down to Clemson, Notre Dame in the ACC title game in 2 weeks. It's going to be the winner of that probably gets the playoff spot, unless Ohio State doesn't play again this year, because there's a weird thing with COVID. You need to play at least 6 games to get into your title game. And right now they're only at 5, and there's a chance they might not play because of their COVID issues and other teams. So if they're not in the playoff, all of a sudden that opens up another team, and you're looking at Bama, Clemson, obviously. Notre Dame's played really well, could sneak back in. And then that leaves you with a couple teams like Florida, Miami, Cincinnati, teams like that. So college.
So Matt, Notre Dame playing in the ACC championship game this year, is that just a one-year thing because of the weirdness of the season?
Yeah, so if they went with their independent route like they normally would, there was a chance that they couldn't play anyone, because back when schedules were being made, everything was just conference only. Thankfully, enough teams have started to work. So like the military schools, BYU, started making schedules. But yeah, for the most part, they were like, let's hop in the ACC. We're in there for every other sport but football. We have to share our revenue through NBC money, but they get to play a conference schedule and be in an ACC title game.
All right, that's your college football roundup. The NBA is starting again in like 3 weeks. Wow. Gordon Hayward's left Boston. What else? Russell Westbrook's now on the Wizards. What else do we need to know, Brian?
Well, Josh was talking about the whole Gordon Hayward thing and blah, 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 blah. And I guess, so bottom line is they get a trade exemption. So they can make a trade, and it's the largest in NBA history. So basically they can trade a second-round pick for a guy making almost $28 million a year, which, you're going to get a decent player for that amount of money.
It's incredible.
And, yeah. So did they get nothing for it? No. And I guess the whole thing was they wanted to pay Tristan Thompson $9 million a year. instead of Miles Turner $18 million a year for 4 years. In 3 years from now, the only guy under contract will be Jason Tatum, and they can literally rebuild their entire team if they wanted to. If they sign Turner, he'd be under contract, and then you'd have to, if you wanted to keep him, then he'd be making $30+ million a year, and they just didn't want to do that. And the other guy they were going to get was like Dougie McBuckets. They didn't want him either. They need some outside shooting, but they didn't want him either. So the deal they did, they get the trade exemption, which is fine. They're a little weak on the wings right now. And then Kemba still, his knee is bothering him. He's not going to start till January. But they got Jeff Teague, who's better than average. Once Kemba comes back, he's going to be a huge upgrade over Brad Wanamaker. They did get the point guard from was the Ducks there, Oregon Ducks, I believe.
Peyton Pritchard.
Yeah, who's pretty decent. You're going to hear some white chocolate references as soon as he starts. The white kids in the suburbs of Boston are going to be pounding their chest once he hits a couple 3-pointers.
Let's be honest. He's going to spend all year in Maine and play like 10 minutes.
Hey, you know where I'm going. I gotta go watch my team. The Red Claws. Those are my guys. Yeah. And but we'll see what happens. I think they're going to be okay. The guy Naismith they got, I think, is going to be good to hit some outside shots. He was the best in college basketball. Last year, guys with decent athletic ability but were lights out from three like Tyler Hero were killing the Celtics. And for the first time in the Celtics, instead of drafting the best athletes who could learn to shoot threes, they should screw it. We're not going to draft the best athletes. We're going to draft guys who can shoot threes already. And it was a big philosophy change for them as a team. But that's what they needed. They have guys who can do just about everything else, except for down low. And then they got Tristan Thompson as a center. So now Tice is your backup, which is going to be a really big upgrade. People don't realize how big of an upgrade that's going to be having Thompson in there. Cantor was great offensively, but defensively he couldn't stop anybody at all. Thompson's going to be great. And because Thompson and Tice are only going to play around 20 minutes, they can use all those fouls. Where there was a lot of times Tice would have 4 fouls on him, and he just would have to give up or let the guy go by because he knew, I got to play at the end of the game because if we don't, we have to put in Robert Williams. Or Grant Williams would have to play center at the end of the game, and guys were just getting burned, out-rebounded. They were getting waxed on the boards offensively, So I think it's going to be a much better team this year. I think they're going to be okay. It's going to be – it's the Lakers and everybody else,
I'm really intrigued to see how Time Lord can kind of develop into what we thought he could be, which is a guy who gives you 100% effort, gets you about 2 or 3 blocks a game, and just does nothing but rebound. Like, I'm not looking for, what was it, the game 7 or whatever, where he started like incredibly hot and like 7 for 7 from the field. No, like have some great alley-oop dunks. Like if you can be like a knockoff Dwight Howard from like 2010, 2011 type thing, that adds so much to this team that has, like you said, rebounding is not a strength of theirs. Blocking shots is not a strength of theirs. It's let's try to play tight perimeter defense. And that works until you get to the finals where they're not calling anything and you're just getting LeBron driving by you.
Yeah, early on in training camp, they're talking about putting him in power forward for 5 or 10 minutes a game just to go really big. And then have, they're experimenting with having Jason Tatum run the point for, for like the last minute of a quarter. And he doesn't have to worry about crashing the boards. He can play back because you're going to have so much size up front, where they haven't really had that in the past. Rebounding and 3-point shooting has been the problems this team has had. And as bad as those problems have been, this team has made the Eastern Conference Finals. I think, was it 3 years in a row now?
2 out of 3.
2 out of 3, which I know Charlotte sure as shit ain't never going to do that with their new $30 million man.
Even more than they've been in the conference finals a few other times with Brad Stevens too.
Yeah, so I mean they're always knocking on the door, but it's people want to blame Danny for not maybe making the right moves or mortgaging the future or God knows what's going on, but they're always in it, and at least it's something we can talk about. It's not like where like going through that painful season last year with the Red Sox, going like they have no pitching. It's thank God no fans had to go because it was awful. At least the Celtics were fun to watch.
What season? There was a season.
Yeah, I don't know. Some shitty team from LA won another championship. I just stopped watching.
Yep. Now, is it official that the Celtics are hosting Kyrie and the Nets?
Yep. At the 5 o'clock game, the game in the middle of the afternoon, Kyrie will be there.
Allegedly, he'll probably flake out somehow.
Yeah. Now, my thing is, how long do you think Durant puts up with this bullshit? Will they last the full year?
It depends if they get Harden. If they get Harden, he's not going to worry about Kyrie. Kyrie's just going to be like that annoying younger brother, just yelling and yapping in the background. And Durant's like, look, Harden and I got this. Nash, sit your ass down. We'll just handle this.
How would that even work money-wise unless he took like the veteran minimum? Because doesn't Durant and Kyrie both make like almost 40 now?
They would have to get rid of
Everyone.
who's the center? Jordan.
Oh, DeAndre, which would be hard.
No.
But I mean, money-wise, that is tight. That is real tight.
Well, thankfully they're paying DeAndre that much. Like, I mean, that's how.
Hopefully nobody blows an ACL like Thompson did again. I mean, God, the guy was ready to come back, and he's going to miss another year. Was it the same leg or was it a different leg?
I think it's the other leg.
Ah, geez. So he blew it out rehabbing.
Probably.
Yeah.
I really liked what they.
Maybe they'll get another second-round pick as the second pick in the first round.
I liked what they did. That was always their weakness. They never had a big that was athletic enough to handle everything, and now they got one relatively cheap.
Do you think they rebound a 50-win team and an 82-win schedule now?
Golden State?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. I don't know if they can do that with Clay out the whole year again.
I mean, they still got Draymond. They still got Steph. They still got nobody else because they're
so like the way I look at it, LA, they're still there. Denver's still there. Utah and Dallas are still there getting better. So that's 5 teams.
Dallas is going to be really good this year. They're going to really.
Houston's done.
Yeah.
Oklahoma City done. Memphis could get better, but that could go either way. Phoenix, they started Chris Paul, could get better.
The West top heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was top heavy last year. Well, not as top heavy as it is now, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So you're basically, can you beat Portland, Utah, Phoenix, New Orleans? That's like where you're at. And I mean, they have the veteran leadership, and give Steve Kerr some credit. He's won 3 titles. Obviously, I mean, I don't think coaching means anything in the NBA anyways, but.
Did you read the stuff about the Clippers, how George and Kawhi were getting all kinds of special treatment and Doc was letting them do whatever they want? So the team basically just gave up on Doc in the playoffs. Did you hear about that?
No, but that doesn't shock me.
Yeah. And then Montrezl Harrell, he just basically walked across the locker room. He's like, I'm not playing with those losers, so I'm going to go play for the Lakers.
Who's the Clippers' new coach? I have no idea.
Tyronn Lue?
Who is that?
You know,
I don't know. It could be. Did they name one? Well, hold on, man. I have to like put in the Googleizer.
Oh, you know, it is Tyler.
Yeah, Tyler.
Yeah, it is Tyler.
Oh, it is?
He's the anti-Buck Showalter.
But like Ty Lue is literally the epitome of why I don't think coaching matters in the NBA. Like, he is won a title and thinks he can get any coaching job he wants. But LeBron was coaching that team and literally told Ty Lue to shut up and sit down. Like that, you're not a coach if you listen to that.
Eric Spoelstra is a good coach now?
Now, yes. I've had this argument. Brendan was there when I had this argument.
Yeah.
So Dan, for clarification, back when I was in college and he won the titles with the Heat and LeBron, I didn't give him any credit because I was like, anyone could have won a title with that Heat team.
Right.
But now I'm giving him credit because he's built a team he's actually had to coach and develop.
And now as a mature adult, you can look back and see that he did have to do some coaching those years, and he had to juggle all those egos. That's a big part of coaching in the NBA.
The ego thing is, yeah.
Bill Jackson.
Rick Pitino.
But he didn't have anybody walking through that door.
Yeah, well, stamina is a big issue. But guys, we got a minute left. Anything else we want to talk about real quick before we close? I think
it would be really cool if the Bruins and a couple other teams played outside during the season to let fans in. I know it's never going to happen because it costs a lot of money to maintain a rink outside. But Fenway's done it the past couple of years with literally no expectations. So if they're putting a rink out there, why not let the Bruins use it and at least let 10,000 fans into the stadiums, see what happens? That's just my piece.
If they do it, Dan and his mustache will get a media pass, and we'll make it happen.
Why not Gillette Stadium?
Because sightlines there, even you like that too. At least keep it in Boston. Keep it close.
Well, that'd be pretty cool. All right, that is it for Brian. For Matt, I'm Dan. Spin the damn music. We'll talk to you soon.